July 27, 1938, Schenectady Gazette, Schenectady, New York. Ledge sitter leaps to death as attempt is made to raise net. Gaping, traffic jamming crowd witnesses act after holding rescuers off for hours. By William S. White, New York, July 26, AP. In a flare-lit scene of hysterical horror, John Warde, 26, and unemployed, leaped to death tonight from a 17th floor hotel ledge to which he had clung intermittently, threatening to jump for more than 10 hours. His body landed on 55th Street near Fifth Avenue amid scattered screams rising from among the thousands who for hours had stood morbidly bemused. Many women fainted. Ambulances screamed into the area to take them away. The last of half a dozen expedients to bring Warde down safely was all but completed when calmly and with no single hesitation he stepped from the ledge. The police, nearly 1,000 of whom had been brought into the fashionable Midtown area to help in the rescue and in pushing back the curious, had hauled up from the street a stout net of the sort used in loading cargo. They had intended to grasp one end at the 16th floor, another at the 18th, and thus to enmesh Warde as a butterfly is netted. Just as the net crept silently upward past the 16th floor, Warde came at last to his decision. He stood with the right foot half extending from the ledge. He poised for a moment, then thrust his left foot forward, clear of the ledge, and plummeted downward. First, the body dropped head-on. Then it began to spin crazily around and end over end, until with a high smash it struck a marquee. Below, the whole area was alight with photographic flares, and noise broke from the crowd, first in a long moan, and then in a series of sharp, individual screams. Warde's last words were heard by Dr. G.C. Presner, a City Health Department physician who had talked with him frequently during the day. He said if we could promise him that life was worth living, he would come in, the doctor said. He said many people close to him were against him. He said that he tried many ventures and failed. He said he knew he should be penalized. There was no way out of it, Dr. Presner quoted Warde as saying, I have been up here many hours, trying to convince myself of a reason for living. I've made up my mind. At that point, Dr. Presner said, Warde glanced upwards a fleet moment and stepped off into space, his body hurtling to meet a shriek that welled up from the crowd below. I don't think it was because of fear or shock, Dr. Presner said. He had made his decision. The poor fellow was irrational during the last half an hour. Warde was the son of a Southampton, New York Railway Express agent. The hotel room from which he walked this morning to the ledge was occupied by Mr. and Mrs. Patrick Valentine, socially prominent, wealthy young couple of Chicago and Southampton, exclusive Long Island summer colony. Valentine, said Warde, formerly was employed here with a telephone company and by a bank, and with a telephone company in Southampton. He had been out of work for the last year and had been despondent. Valentine said he had taken Warde and his sister, Mrs. Catherine Bull, to Chicago a week ago in an effort to cheer him. Southampton police records show Warde attempted suicide July 11, 1937, by cutting his throat with a knife. He recovered in the Southampton hospital and on August 26 was committed to the state hospital at Central Islip. Released in November, he recently had been employed by Mr. and Mrs. Valentine as a guardian for their children. A week ago yesterday, police at Hampton Bays, New York, reported they rescued him when he jumped from the Ponquag Bridge. Mr. and Mrs. Valentine, Mrs. Bull, and Warde returned here today from Chicago, and it was after Valentine went to the office of a travel bureau which he heads that Warde walked out on the ledge. In the long effort to bring Warde down safely, every sort of persuasion was used by men and women who leaned from the hotel window almost, but not quite, close enough to touch him. Mrs. Bull pleaded with him as a sister. Diane Gregel, a statuesque blonde, who claimed previous experience in such matters, sought to lure him in with the appeal of her beauty. A priest and a Protestant police chaplain appealed to him upon spiritual grounds. The police begged him with every sort of persuasive tactic. Even his mother's appeals were useless. She telephoned, begging him not to jump. A portable instrument was handed out onto the ledge to him, but he refused to talk. He hung up without answering. The police struggled under a great wave of suggestions, many of which had a macabre humor. An army man volunteered to try jiu-jitsu. A man in Rochester, New York, telephoned the suggestion that a net be put about the whole hotel so he could be pushed off. One spectacular method abandoned was this. Police roped two comrades were seated in bosun's chairs and lowered to a position where it was hoped they could grasp him. The plan had to be abandoned, for fear Warde would leap before the dangling officers could reach him. July 28, 1938, Lewiston Morning Tribune, Lewiston, Idaho. John Warde's Carnival of Death cost New York hotelmen and merchants around $100,000 because kibitzers blocked trade. Many exclusive shops lost practically one whole day's business. New York, July 27, AP. Unofficial estimates of the cost of John Warde's 17-story death leap to the city, the Gotham Hotel and merchants in the vicinity, ranged up from $100,000 today. No official figure was available, but it was pointed out the exclusive shops along Fifth Avenue and side streets, for at least 2 blocks in each direction from the hotel, did little or no business. Police lines barred customers, and the shop's clerks, almost to a man, were watching Warde. At least 1,000 police and firemen, 2 ambulances, and an emergency truck and several police cars were at the scene. The actual cost of this activity was not estimated authoritatively. Body unclaimed. New York, July 27, AP. John Warde, 26, the nerve-sick man on the ledge, central figure in Manhattan's most spectacular delayed suicide, was alone tonight in the solitude of an East Side funeral parlor. The 11-hour Carnival of Death that gripped thousands of New Yorkers in agonizing suspense climaxed last night with his plunge from the 17th floor of the Gotham Hotel was ended. No one called to identify his shattered remains. No disposition was made for the body. In the aftermath of the strange case, enacted amid a stage setting of skyscrapers, neck-craning thousands, clicking newsreel cameras, magnesium flare, fainting women, and even a television pickup, medical experts joined the man in the street trying to answer the question, why did he do it the way he did it? Dr. A. Arden Brill, psychiatrist and disciple of Freud, Columbia University lecturer on psychosexual science, interpreted Warde's prolonged debate with death as the manifestation of a schizoid maniac. He lived in his own dream world out there on the ledge before he jumped, Brill said. He was not a maniac depressive. That type gets moods of exaltation, followed by moods of the darkest depression. In the secondary hangover mood, a maniac type would not hesitate. He would walk to the window and leap. Another expert opinion came from Dr. Joseph Jastrow, New York psychologist, who pictured young Warde, the self-embittered failure, the youth who had never dominated anyone, whose every venture in life seemed doomed to frustration, as enjoying a final hour of triumph. He stood up there alone, looking down on the great crowds, dominating a scene at last, he said. The crowds did not scare him. He enjoyed it. He was perfectly self-centered and self-confident. Warde, in the long prelude to his death, dangled his legs nonchalantly over the side of his 18-inch perch. He swayed and poised his hands as though about to dive, drawing gasps from the crowds. He puffed cigarettes, and he calmly sipped glasses of water. He ate a piece of cake handed out to him and said yes, he'd accept a cup of coffee. He specified it was to have cream in it, plenty of cream, and when he had tasted it, he handed the cup back. More sugar, he ordered. So he lingered for hours, towering over the weird life and death spectacle of his own creation, until dusk became darkness, and a plan to trap him, to catch him in a giant net and pin him against the side of the building like a butterfly, spurred him to step off into space.